Hello, I'm Gwen Hill from Pine Ridge Baptist Church, Sunday School Department Ladies Class, and we are studying the book of Revelation. We are on chapter 16. We're going to finish 16 up in this session, and we are studying the 7 vials of judgment that are being poured out by God. This is the last thing that's happening before the appearance of Jesus Christ returning to earth. And it is during the period of judgment. Please remember when we study this that the Old Testament was the period of the law. God was telling us what he expected and giving us his covenant. Then we have the New Testament through today, through until the rapture occurs, the age of grace. We have the story of Jesus. We know and are told about God's grace and God's love, and we are expected to respond, and we are expected to work. We are expected to live for him and to share him with others. Now, with these 7 vials, as soon as they are poured out, these are judgments. Remember that Revelation is when God says it's the end times. We are now entering the periods of the judgments. It is not the time of grace anymore. The rapture has occurred, and now you are expected to die for Christ. That's the big difference. Currently, the day that you and I live in is the day of grace, where we are expected to live for the Lord. And then the period of judgment, you're expected to die for the Lord, because that's the only way you're going to survive as a follower and as a believer of Jesus Christ. Everything's different. It's topsy-turvy from what we normally think of, but we're going to start in chapter 16, verse 18. Then there came flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, and a severe earthquake. No earthquake like it has ever occurred since mankind has been on earth. So tremendous was the quake, the great city split into 3 pieces, and the cities of the nations collapsed. God remembered Babylon the Great and gave her the cup filled with the wine of his fury, of his wrath. Every island fled away, and the mountains could not be found. From the sky, huge hailstones, each weighing about 100 pounds, fell on the people. And they cursed God on account of the plague of the hail, because the plague was so very terrible. Okay, let's go back and look at the 7 vials, or the 7 bowls of judgment that is being poured out on the earth. There are 7 angels who come out of the heavenly temple, each holding a bowl or vial, if you please. It's the same root word, and they were told to pour them out, and they did in succession. And most of the scholars that I've read, commentators that I've read, talk about it's in quick succession. And one of the reasons they think it's in quick succession is because not for a long mankind could not live for a long time with either one of these happening. These are going to destroy mankind. So they're going to have to occur, maybe not in rapid fire, but very, very quickly, one after the other. The first one's going to be horrible sores. They're going to experience putrefying, pus oozing, terrible sores, all of the unbelievers that are left on the earth. And there's not many believers left, if any. Then you're going to have vial number 2 is the ocean water is going to appear like dead man's blood. Dead man's blood would be congealed blood. So the oceans now are going to be thick. They're going to be bloody. We are not going to have any vegetative or animal life left in the oceans. Your whales, porpoises, orcas, sardines, shellfish, it's all dead. It's all dead. Can't survive in this. Also think about your ships, the ones that carry cargo. They can't go through their machinery, the way to move through the water, if you would, doesn't work in this congealed blood atmosphere. The third vial is all the fresh water, the creeks, the springs. This fresh water is now blood. Note he doesn't say like a dead man's blood. This is not congealed. Salt water is congealed, but fresh water is not. But it cannot be a long-term sustenance for mankind. You can live a while drinking blood. You can filter it. You can do all kinds of things with it and maybe live for a while, but you're not going to have an extended life if all of your fresh water turns to blood. Then the intensity of the sun is ramped up, so that if you walk outside your door into the sunlight, you are going to get third-degree burns. You'll have to go outside protected. The intensity is ramped up. And do you remember the story about the three, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego? They were thrown into the furnace. Remember, it was 7 times hotter. And the men that were going to throw them into the furnace, they died just getting close to the furnace. That's the kind of heat we're talking about. This is the kind of heat that you're going to develop third-degree burns if you just walk out in it unprotected. And if you can imagine how horrible that is, burns are awful. Third-degree burns are burns that burn through every layer of your skin and go plumb to the meat. They are not as painful as a first or second-degree burn because they burn up all the nerve endings. However, now you have an open wound that's subjected to all kinds of infection, and then you have not only the threat of infection, but you can't keep your fluids in. So dehydration is terrible with a third-degree burn, something you have to really watch. Then the fifth vial is the kingdom of the beast goes into darkness. When the Antichrist comes on board, the eastern part of the world is divided into 10 kingdoms. 3 of those kingdoms, the kings over them, hand their power, hand their kingdoms over to the Antichrist. So the Antichrist, within those 10, he controls 3, okay? He controls 3. That is a mini kingdom within many kingdoms. And his kingdom becomes dark. The Lord puts darkness over him, much like he did in Exodus when we're talking about the plague of darkness that was over all of Egypt, but Goshen, where the Israelites were, it wasn't dark. Same preface here, letting the people draw their own opinions, that this is God's doing. Then the Euphrates, and vial number 6, the Euphrates River dries up. Why would you worry about the Euphrates River drying up? Because this drying up of this river allows entrance into Judean territory without much harassment at all. It allows military, it allows all of their equipment to come across and to stand ready to invade Israel. Then number 7, that's what we're looking at today, and that is the plague or the judgment of storms, earthquakes, hail, and the great cities falling across the earth. So let's go back and let's look now at verse 18. This is the 7th vial that is being poured out of judgment. And there came flashes of lightning, rumbling, peals of thunder, and a severe earthquake. No earthquake like it has ever occurred since mankind has been on earth. So tremendous was the quake. I want you to notice in here how many times the power of the Lord is shown in this. Remember when we studied Exodus and we talked about the top of Mount Sinai, when God came down to the top of Mount Sinai, and the lightning and the rumbles and the peals of thunder and not a severe earthquake, but the shaking of the mountain when God came down in the cloud at the top of the mountain. How marvelous was that? And this is very reminiscent of that. God is coming again. He is showing you his power. While this is severe, I want you to look. It said, and a severe earthquake. That's one. No earthquake like it has ever occurred since mankind has been on earth. That's two. So tremendous was the quake. That's three. When the Bible mentions anything twice, like Jesus a lot of times said, verily, verily, I say, he says, you better listen. You better listen. This is so important. I'm going to say it twice. I'm going to call your attention to it twice. It's very, very important. So when he says it 3 times, think of how grand or grandiose or tremendous, as the word they use here, this earthquake is going to be. It is going to be something that is really, really out there. And the way it's going to happen is this earthquake is talked about in Zechariah chapter 14, verse 4, and also in Ezekiel 47, 1 through 12, talks about the way the temple faces and how that earthquake will cause the water to spring out from and under the temple. Interesting. It'll make cold chills on your hands when you read about it. Then in verse 19, the great city. Okay, when they in the Bible talk about the great city, a lot of times they'll modify that. They'll say the great city Babylon, okay? And every time that they mention the great city, when it's referencing another city, they put the city's name in there. The great city of Babylon, the great city of Sidon. All right, but when they just use it singular and they say that great city and they don't modify it, that's Jerusalem. That's Jerusalem. So that great city, the great city, and they're talking about Jerusalem, split into 3 parts. Look at, let's see, Revelation 11:8, and that will talk to you about the great city, Jerusalem. Okay, let's see where that is, 11:8. Their bodies will lie in the public square of the great city, which is figuratively called Sodom and Egypt. There also their Lord was crucified. So where was Christ crucified? In Jerusalem. So when it just says the great city, but it doesn't give the modifying name of the city, they're talking about Jerusalem. That great city, Jerusalem, was split into 3 parts, and the cities of the nation collapsed. The cities of the nations are the Gentiles, and the great cities collapsed. Think of your great cities. We talked about one of the other judgments, how it would, when the sun got so hot, how it would cause a water surge when the ice caps melted, and the cities that would affect. But think about these nations that have great cities that are collapsed. Name some great cities. London, New York City, Washington, D.C., Moscow, Berlin, London, Paris, Sydney. All of these, they collapsed. This earthquake leveled them. It's amazing. And God remembered Babylon the Great and gave her the cup filled with the wine of his fury, of his wrath. He destroyed her. Totally and completely destroyed her. Every island fled away. That means the islands disappeared. Think of some islands. How about Hawaii? The Philippines, Bermuda, and the mountains could not be found. I live near the Smoky Mountains. They're going to disappear. What about all of the mountains? If you look out your window, do you see a mountain? You won't on this day. When that 7th one is poured out, there will be falling from the sky huge hailstones. Each one weighing about 100 pounds fell on the people. These hailstones have been described by some scientists as how big they would have to be to weigh 100 pounds. Frozen ice that weighs 100 pounds. There is an ice machine in the town nearby where I live, and you can take a container and it will pour out 20 pounds of pellet ice. That's a big load. And the biggest hailstone that has fallen within the last 40 or 50 years has been a 1.5 pound, and it was the size of a baseball. Can you imagine a hailstone that weighs 100 pounds? It would be the size of a big beach ball. A big beach ball. I brought in some 16-inch beach balls to show to my Sunday school class, and I said, this is smaller than this hailstone will be in size, but it's huge. Think a minute what it's going to do to property that it falls on. Think about any animals that are outside or any humans that are outside. Have you ever run through a hailstorm? I've had some hail pellets, maybe, I don't know, as big as a dime maybe. Those sting like crazy when they hit. What would it do to your car? It wouldn't just break a headlight out or a windshield out, would it? It would smash your car. We're not talking about one, we're talking about a storm of them. Can you imagine? Would your roof support still stand with these hail balls falling? Hailstones falling? No, wouldn't. Absolutely would beat to death anything that was out there and would destroy things. The people and the things that would survive would be those things that could be like in under a tunnel or a cave, something with a lot of earth under it. Think about it. The end of that verse says, and they cursed God on account of the plague of hail, because the plague was so terrible. I want you to think about these people who have repeatedly been given opportunities to come to the Lord, and in chapter 16 they have cursed the Lord 3 times already in total. In Leviticus chapter 24 verse 14, it says, take the blasphemer outside the camp. All those who heard him are to lay their hands on his head, and the entire assembly is to stone him. This generation of people that is left during this time are all blasphemers. We are told they curse God. We've been told 3 times in this chapter that they curse God. That's blasphemy. So God carries out the punishment that he has decreed in Leviticus. He has thrown the stones. He has thrown the stones. This is a just punishment, a just judgment. This is God calling mankind into accountability for the way that they have treated his saints through the years, for the way that we've treated his son, and the way that we have treated as a people, how we have treated Christians and people who stood up for him through all these many ages. It's a just punishment. We have known that our God would not put up with this, but we always thought we'd get away with it. These people had an opportunity to turn to the Lord, and they chose not to. So they are paying for their choices. Doesn't make God evil that this is coming in on us, on the people that are left. It means he's just. That if we have the right to choose, we have the right to pay the penalty for that. Excuse me. So we're ready to start chapter 17. Hope you have a good day today. Goodbye.